Chào ông nội có khỏe không? Hi Grandpa, how are you doing? It's what I'd say every single time I visited Grandpa in Seattle, Washington, as I wrapped my arms around him to give him a big hug. I'd say this visit after visit, for as long as I can remember. Although most of my life I knew my grandpa as a man who survived several strokes, and who lived the rest of his 14 years of life suffering from memory loss and mobility difficulties. He's one of the greatest men I know. This man, my Ong Noi, my grandpa, is Nguyen. Born and raised in Hoa Vang, Vietnam, my grandfather lived a very difficult youth. He was the oldest of 5 and began working at age 12 to support his younger siblings and help out his parents. Despite the financial hardships of his family, he managed to complete high school and received a diploma. A few years later, he married my grandmother, Nguyen. With her, he established a successful business called Phuc Hoa Company. Eventually, my grandparents' business prospered, and he became one of the most prominent business leaders in Vietnam. Even though Phuc Hoa Co. was one of my grandfather's greatest accomplishments, he was even prouder of raising a family of 13 children, 9 boys and 4 girls. I guess you could say that my grandpa was quite the family man. I mean, he was married for over 65 years, had 13 children, 31 grandchildren, and 21 great-grandchildren before his passing. But during the Civil War, his family was forced to leave Vietnam after his business was shut down, and he as well as some of his own children were imprisoned for resisting the communism. Fortunately, his family was able to escape the Viet Cong. They were among the many boat people, and they traveled from Vietnam to Malaysia and eventually made it to the United States. Here in America, they began a new life. My grandfather moved from place to place on the West Coast to support his children as they established new businesses, but finally settled in Seattle, Washington, where he lived with his wife and oldest son. But things changed when he complained of a horrible headache he'd had for a couple days. After being rushed to the emergency room, the doctor saved my grandfather's life. He had suffered the first of a few strokes, and the entire family was so thankful that he had survived. But from this day forward, things would be different. He had difficulty taking care of himself, but that didn't stop him from living a happy life. Although my family drove up to Seattle countless times, I didn't know of how self-sacrificing he was until after his passing. For instance, when they moved to the United States, there was over 30 people living in one house. My grandfather slept on the hard floors every night so that his children and grandchildren could have mattresses to sleep on. He put aside his own aspirations of building a business like he had in Vietnam and traveled back and forth to support his children's up-and-coming businesses. He even cared for one of his grandsons, whose father had passed when he was little. My grandparents raised G as if he was their own. And one of the most honorable things that my grandfather has done is to live his life supporting his oldest son, who has struggled with schizophrenia since he was little. These sacrifices, along with many others, have taught me what it truly means to love and care about my own family. Ong Noi, just like I wrote in the letter that I placed in your casket. I miss you tons, and God to Ong Noi, Rat you.